Grace and peace. Apostle Cheryl Richardson here with Judah's Roar Domestic Violence Awareness Initiative. Today's topic is 10 thinking errors that abusers look for to identify their target. Now, thinking errors are also known as cognitive distortions, and they're also known as stinking thinking. So I'm going to give you a few seconds, if you haven't done so already, to look down here, tap that subscribe button. Make sure you click the bell for notifications. And during the video, even if you're catching the replay, feel free to comment, like, and share this video. I'm going to give you a few seconds to subscribe if you've not done so already, and we'll be right back. So, a cognitive distortion takes place in our minds when we experience an upsetting event in our lives, a disagreement at work, an argument with a partner, something like that. And we think about it in a way that reinforces negativity and feeling horrible about who we are as individuals. Okay. A cognitive distortion can cause mental illness like anxiety. It can encourage self defeating behaviors. Um, they can cause us to become self fulfilling prophecies as far as negativity is concerned in our lives. Okay. So it goes beyond just feeling badly because things aren't going well. And it's an excessive thought process that always brings us to a negative place. And here's the clincher, they're inaccurate. They're inaccurate. Okay. And so you think about the Bible says that we have what we say. And so what we say out of our mouths, we set that atmosphere. We tend to move in the direction of what we declare. And here's the other thing that I've learned, we don't really assign that much value to what other people are saying necessarily. It's our self talk, it's what we are saying to ourselves that largely drives our behaviors, our decision making, our worldview, how equipped we feel to deal with the challenges of life. And so, in this video, we're going to look at 10 thinking errors, 10 cognitive distortions that abusers look for to identify their target. All right. It is a repetitive cycle of negative self talk that takes root within us and drives our decision making. And it directly impacts what we believe our options are and what our capabilities are when we are confronted with challenges. And when we entertain these cognitive distortions, it gives us almost an automatic response of submitting or succumbing to the abuser's coercive control tactics and to their manipulations. Okay, let's take a look at thinking error number one, polarized thinking. Polarized thinking is also known as all or nothing thinking or black and white thinking. And a person who engages in this cognitive distortion, this thinking error, habitually thinks in extremes. Things are either going to be completely amazing all of the time, or they're going to be completely horrible and doomed to failure all of the time. And most of the time, reality is found somewhere in the middle, right? Life can often be a mixed bag. Rarely is it all amazing or all horrible in reality. Thinking error number two is overgeneralization. And so, if you're engaging in this habitual thought process, then you reach a conclusion about one event and then you apply that conclusion across the board. An example of this would be you're a student in school and you fail a math test. You perform poorly on a math test. And you decided this means that you're going to be horrible in math forever, that you're going to ultimately fail your math class and not be able to get your diploma or your degree, all based on poor performance on one test. That's an example of overgeneralization. Thinking error number 3 is catastrophizing. Catastrophizing. And this pattern of thinking leads you to dread or assume the worst when confronted with the unknown. Simply not having the answer or the conclusion to a matter may cause you to catastrophize. An example of that would be, let's say you have a disagreement with your best friend, and you all have a disagreement, and then you come to the conclusion that the entire relationship is over, the entire friendship is over. They hate you and they'll never speak to you again. Um, Usually, this is the result of having experienced repeated traumas or negative events, but there's no basis in reality. Okay, that's catastrophizing. Thinking error number 4 is personalization. So, when a person is engaging in this habitual negative thought process, they're taking things personally when in fact the event that has occurred is not connected to them or caused by them at all. And an example of this would be blaming yourself for something that is completely out of your control. Completely out of your control. Or you incorrectly assume that you have been purposefully targeted or purposefully excluded from a situation when that in fact is not the case. Okay, that's personalization, taking things personally when it has nothing at all to do with you. Cognitive distortion number 5 is mind reading, and this is when people assume that they know what others are thinking. An example of this would be, you think I'm an awful parent because I can't purchase $100 tennis shoes for my kids. So you think I'm a terrible parent. Okay? That would be an example of mind reading, assuming that you know what someone else is thinking. Now, there's a difference between that and being empathic and being sensitive to what others may be feeling, uh, what others may be struggling with. When we're talking about mind reading, we're talking about an assumption being made about what another individual is thinking when they have not expressed that to you. Thinking error, cognitive distortion number 6 will be mental filtering. And this is when you completely ignore the positives and focus on the negatives. This increases anxiety, it increases depression, and it even increases isolation. Now, why do I say that? Because if you're talking to someone who is not able to even acknowledge that the positives exist, it becomes exhausting to interact with them. And so, oftentimes, you'll find that people kind of back away, they shy away, they minimize their interaction because it's exhausting when the positive experiences or the positive aspects of life are consistently ignored as though they have not occurred at all. So, mental filtering can really impact relationships as well. Cognitive distortion number 7 is discounting the positive. Now, this may sound like mental filtering, but it's not. In mental filtering, which was cognitive distortion number 6 that we just discussed, the positives are ignored. In discounting the positives, the person who is engaging in this thought process insists that their positive qualities and their accomplishments don't count. So they're not saying that they don't exist, they're discounting them. And people who do this, they don't ignore the positive now, but they explain it away as just a fluke or just luck. And they completely discount the fact that they have worked hard or that they are incredibly skilled or that they're just an amazing person. And it has to be an anomaly. It's just a fluke. It's just a fluke. It has nothing to do with the fact that they have excelled at something. That's discounting the positives. Cognitive distortion number 8 are should statements. Should, should, should statements. A person who engages in this pattern of thought process are very critical of themselves or others, and they frequently use the words should, ought to, must, have tos. And oftentimes these are connected to cultural and even spiritual expectations that an individual can have. Um, Based on their upbringing, based on their core values, their core beliefs. And so a person who is engaging in this type of thought process, they are incredibly critical of themselves, they're critical of others, and they use these words should, ought to, must, and have tos quite a bit. The problem with this thought process is it's very punitive. It doesn't allow for humanity. It doesn't allow for human error. And often the standard is not even attainable, not even attainable. And so this can contribute to, poor self-esteem. It can contribute to depression, ongoing frustration, and it can absolutely have a negative impact on relationships. Cognitive distortion number 9, thinking error number 9 is emotional reasoning. Emotional reasoning. So when we talk about emotional reasoning, we're talking about the fact that this person reasons based on how they feel. They assume that their feelings are the truth, as opposed to their feelings being a response to how they interpret whatever has just occurred. Okay, so our self talk is very, very important. Emotional reasoning is when you reason based on how you feel. An example of this would be I feel completely incompetent. I am not able to knit a sweater. And so that makes me a complete and utter failure. I feel stupid. So therefore, I must be stupid. I feel useless. So therefore, I must be useless, as opposed to being able to understand that they're responding to how they have interpreted a series of events, and that what they're feeling does not determine who they are and what they are. That's emotional reasoning. Distortion or thinking error number 10 is labeling. And so a person who engages in this thought process exhibits a lack of compassion, an inability to extend grace to themselves and others. They won't say, I made a mistake. Instead, they'll say, I'm stupid or I'm a loser. Um, this person labels and defines themselves or others based on a single event. For example, um, say you're trying to gain employment, but you never finished high school and you're accepted at this job, but then they require your high school diploma or your GED certificate. Your response, your feeling may be, I'm a loser. I'm a loser. As opposed to acknowledging that there were circumstances that you were confronted with in life when you were younger that interfered with your ability, whether it was your level of maturity, whether it was you had issues going on at home, whether it was you became a parent at an extremely young age and you weren't able to finish school. So rather than acknowledging that there were circumstances that exist in my life or that existed in my life that impeded my ability to get my diploma or my GED, right? Instead, you say, I'm a loser. I'm a failure. I'm stupid. Okay. Okay, so let's do a quick recap. We've talked about what a cognitive distortion, also known as a thinking error or stinking thinking. We've talked about what that is. And it's more involved than just feeling badly about something that we've experienced in life. It's more like a repetitive cycle that we become stuck in that reinforces the negative aspects of our lives or of our experiences and tends to completely neglect any positivity whatsoever. So, we talked about 10 specific thought processes or thinking errors that really make us vulnerable in life in general, but certainly make us vulnerable to an abuser. And we've talked about polarized thinking, overgeneralization, catastrophizing, personalization, mind reading, mental filtering, discounting the positives, should statements, should, would, ought to, must have to statements. We talked about emotional reasoning and we talked about labeling. And so I encourage you to go back and look at this video and see if you can identify any negative, repetitive thought patterns that maybe you employ in your own life. Maybe have your best friend, someone that's close to you, review the list and let you know if they see these patterns. It's important to understand that abusers study their intended target. They listen to the stories that are shared about your past. They listen to the stories that you share about your experiences growing up or as a young adult or in previous relationships, and they glean from that what you are vulnerable to. They listen to your speech pattern and they listen for you being self critical and self denigrating and not giving yourself enough credit. This allows them to know just about how far they can push you, and it allows them to adjust their manipulation game as well. They know what you want to hear, they know what you need to hear, and so then they know what to produce in order to gain control of you. Okay, and so it's important to understand that, and you want to know more about yourself than the abuser does. One of the things that I've learned, and I've said this before, is that we don't assign that much importance to what others say. Okay, we might listen because we don't want to be rude and obnoxious, but we really listen to what we tell ourselves. And so our self talk is incredibly important. And if you are engaging in cognitive distortions, you are really strengthening the hand of the abuser. You are strengthening their hold on your life. And they are literally living rent free in your head. So now in a future video, we're going to talk about what can be done to turn this around, to gain the upper hand in terms of cognitive distortions or thinking errors or stinking thinking. All right? Take a few minutes, check out what we've got down in the description box. It'll let you know how you can support us and how you can partner with us. This is Apostle Cheryl L. Richardson from Judah's Roy Domestic Violence Awareness Initiative. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Feel free to visit our YouTube channel at any time. Watch the videos, share them with your friends and your loved ones, and we'll be back with you on next week. We upload a new video every single Sunday. I'm looking forward to hanging out with you in the live chat. Blessings to you.